Welcome back. A Michigan man sent to prison for life for hiring someone to kill his wife just might get a new trial. Bob Schorr was convicted of hiring a handyman to murder his wife, Jane. During his trial, prosecutors say he was motivated by his secret alternative lifestyle with his mistress. Well, the handyman who went to jail, Joe Gentz, confessed to his role in the crime, but now he is changing his story, claiming in a sworn affidavit that Schorr, the husband, actually owed him money for a job. So Gentz says that he broke into Schorr's house planning to steal something, and that's where Jane Schorr caught him. Gentz claims that that is when he strangled her. Here's our legal panel. Ashley Merchant is a criminal defense attorney, and Dan Schorr is a former prosecutor. All right, let's talk about this case. Dan, and start with you. Schorr wants a new case. What are the chances he's going to get that?
He might have a good shot here because you have the person who we know committed the murder, who originally had said that Schorr hired him to do it, is now recanting and saying in a sworn statement that Schorr had nothing to do with the killing. And the question we have to ask is, what would be this handyman's motive to lie here? He's already serving 28 years for the murder. He's not going to get any benefit from helping the defense here. And remember, Schorr was actually convicted earlier of trying to kill the handyman in jail. Schorr says he did it because the guy killed his wife. The police were saying that he tried to kill the handyman because he was trying to silence him before trial. But in any event, he certainly doesn't have a motive to help Schorr based on that. So there might be a new trial here if the judge finds this to be evidence that might be supportive enough of a different verdict.
Ashley, so what do you make of all this? Do you think he'll get a new trial? I mean, it's a complicated story, and they both sound like they're not the best of guys out there. What do you think is going to happen here?
Right, it's a very complicated story, but I think it's enough to undermine the judge's confidence in the jury's verdict. And the question really is, would the jury have come out differently had they heard from Mr. Gentz? And if he had testified, which he didn't at the trial, if he had testified, would he have testified and supported the defense theory and said, you know what, this guy had nothing to do with it? And there's really no scientific evidence in this case to support the fact that he actually murdered his wife, or that he actually hired Mr. Gentz to murder his wife. So the lack of scientific evidence, I think, helps to give him a shot at a new trial.
Helps to give the husband a shot at a new trial. Let me ask you about this. Gentz, the handyman, just to try to keep things simple, claims that the police coerced him into fingering the husband and getting him behind bars. Let me read a part of this to you from the affidavit. He claims that the police said, quote, "We're going to help you and you will get a lesser sentence if you help us get Bob Schorr, the husband." Dan, what do you make of that?
Well, the police were certainly looking at the husband as a possible suspect from the beginning here. And Bob Schorr did act in a bizarre way. He had a lot of contact with the handyman right before the killing. He had this alternative lifestyle, and he had made at least one comment in an email saying he was about to have a change in the nature of his life. Now, this isn't rock solid evidence that he was part of the murder, but it gave enough for the police to think maybe he was a part of it. And when they knew that Gentz actually committed the murder, they put pressure on him to flip on the person who allegedly hired him. That's standard police procedure. Now, Gentz is saying the police went overboard, that they had improper practices, and that led Gentz to make a statement that was not true. And that's something that will have to come out maybe in a hearing for the new trial. And ultimately, if there is a new trial, that will be part of whether the jury believes Gentz's new statements or not.
Ashley, would there be a separate investigation into the police just based on that claim? You know, he also says the police said, quote, "We want him," meaning the husband, "not you."
Right. Well, unfortunately, the police have broad discretion, and they're allowed to do things like this. They're allowed to lie to suspects. They're allowed to trick the suspects and do things like that. So I don't think that the police would be investigated, unfortunately, because in our country we welcome these type of police tactics, even though I don't personally agree with them. But the question would be whether or not what he told the police is actually admissible in court, whether or not it's reliable, or whether or not it was based on this police misconduct and the police actually pressuring him to get him to say these statements. And if he said these things with what's called hope of benefit. Because if you make a statement to the police and you have a hope of getting a benefit, that statement can then have less reliability in court. And I think that's where this is going to come down to, whether or not that statement has any credibility and whether or not it's given any weight in court.
Yeah, and a lot of folks are asking this question, why on earth did the prosecution rely on this guy in the first place? But unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your opinions on this. The case is bringing a lot of attention. Ashley Merchant and Dan Schorr,
Have a good weekend.
Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
You too.